Hello, this is Mike Dutter, and I am the Science and Operations Officer at the National Weather Service in Wakefield, Virginia. Today we're going to talk a little bit about our new wind probability webpage that we have developed, and we're hoping that this webpage will help you better understand the wind conditions that we're expecting over the next few days, and also to understand what the reasonable worst case scenario of winds could be. For example, if we have a coastal low developing and we're forecasting winds of 35 knots with gusts to 40 knots, this interface will allow you to go in and see if there's a low, a medium, or even a high chance of stronger winds, let's say 43 knots or 48 knots. And it will also give you the worst case, sort of the reasonable worst case scenario for wind gusts across the area. And our hopes is that this page will allow you to better plan for what the forecast winds are going to be over the next few days, and give you also an idea of the timing of the winds and when you're expecting sort of the core of the worst winds to occur. So you can find this webpage at weather.gov/AKQ/windprob. That's weather.gov/AKQ/windprob. We're not going to get into the science and the background of the wind probs today. You can find that in the other video. You can see that posted below here. However, I will say that our wind probs are developed in the office. In our office, they run every hour, and they are based on our forecast, our deterministic, our forecast that you see on the in your coastal waters forecast or the point and click. But then it combines all the other models and all the other data sources together to give you a probability of what our expected winds should be, but also what the worst case scenario winds could be. And so again, you can view the video on more details about the statistics and the science behind the wind probs. But today I'd just like to show you the web page itself and what's available on it and how to use it. And we've tried to make it really easy. You can see at the top we have different thresholds here. So like the likelihood of 25 knots, the likelihood of gales, which is 34 knots. The likelihood of stronger gales, 43 knots. And again, these are gusts. And then the likelihood of storm force gusts, 48 knots. In addition, we also have our forecast wind gusts over the next 3 days. So this is our maximum wind gust expected over the next 3 days. And then we have what we call the high-end wind gust. And this is sort of like our most reasonable worst case scenario. So when you look at the probabilities, you take in all the models and all forecast and everything else, this gives you the idea of what a reasonable worst case, or about a 1 in 10 chance of these wind gusts occurring during this time period. So not a huge likelihood, but it's enough of a chance that it's something that you should be at least acknowledge that they could happen. So let's go into the graphics themselves, and you can see that at least in the likelihood graphics here, here's 25 knots, here's 34 knots. Let's stick to this one for a second. You can see there's different color codes, color shading here, from yellow, which is the low, sort of a low likelihood of in this case, gale force gusts over the next 3 days, which is generally 1 to 40%. And then you have this medium threshold, this orange color here, that is a higher threshold, higher likelihood, which is 40 to 70%. And then you have the red, and this is the high likelihood of, in this case again, a gale force gust over the next 3 days. we can look at the likelihood of 43 knots, and we can see a similar pattern, except it's not as wide. Certainly the high high likelihood is not as widespread. It's confined to the southern waters and off of Cape Hatteras. But in this case here, again, same idea. This area here in the Virginia coastal waters are generally in the low likelihood of gusts to 43 knots. The offshore waters here are a medium likelihood, and again, the high likelihood is off of Cape Hatteras. When you go to the forecast wind gust, again, this is simply just our maximum forecast wind gust over the next 3 days. So you can see that in this case, we're forecasting wind gusts in around 41 knots at some point over the next 3 days. And then last but not least, again, this is our high-end wind gusts. Again, sort of our reasonable worst case scenario that you can plan for. So you can see at this point, we're getting close to storm force across the southern waters. Not quite, but awfully close. And again, that sort of corresponds to about that 10% likelihood, right? That 10% chance, that low chance of storm force winds. So that's sort of a way to look at all the data combined. Now, this map, you can see these red dots here that I haven't talked about yet. These red dots are where you can actually go in and get specific information, hourly information on the wind probabilities for that location. So let's go to somewhere, let's sort of look at somewhere with some higher likelihood of 48 knots. Let's go down here off of Duck. So you can click on this, and you can see that right off the bat, there's several things that pop up here. First of all, you have the sustained wind probability, hourly sustained wind probability graphic here. And this is just through, again, the next 3 days. You also have the wind gust probability, which again, this is what these graphics over here are looking at. And you can see, and I'll zoom in, and if you click on these, it will actually zoom in and show you a better, a more zoomed in version of it. But you can see these graphics will allow you to get specific timing. So in this case here, we're expecting the ramp up to strong, moderate to strong gales in this yellow and red and orange, red and orange colors here, to happen around in the morning into the early afternoon on Thursday, the 28th of January here. And again, there is this small likelihood here, about 10% of storm force gusts. And again, that's right around that noon-ish time period on the 28th. And so when you want to get out of that, you simply just click on the X here, and it gets you out. So you have these the wind probabilities to look at, to time out, to make decisions on timing. You then also have, and below here is the actual forecast, our point-and-click forecast for that point that you clicked on. In this case, the water is just off Duck there, and that comes directly from our deterministic forecast. So just because there may be a 10% probability of storm force gusts on Thursday doesn't mean that you're going to see this in here. You're going to see our deterministic, our most likely forecast in gusts. In this case, it's 41 knots for tomorrow, which, by the way, does agree with the most likely forecast that is down here. Again, you can see that 41 knots right there. So the other nice thing about this page is that once you start clicking, you can actually move this up and move it around a little bit, and you can start clicking on other sites, and it should just populate in. So let's go to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, and you can see that just sort of pops in there. You can keep going here, keep going all over the place, and quickly click around to see what the different wind probabilities are if you want to get more information about a specific site. You'll notice too, let's exit out of here for a second, You will notice that we do have some sites that are well offshore, close to the canyons here, Baltimore Canyon, Washington Canyon, Norfolk Canyon, and then further offshore from Duck, closer to the shelf here. And these are there for our future coastal waters expansion out to 60 nautical miles that is expected to occur later this spring or early this summer. Now, when you click on these points at right this time, you'll notice that there's no forecast there, unfortunately. That's because there's no point and click specific information for these areas, but it's in place. So when we do start doing detailed point and click forecast out here, that will be available. So let's go into a few other quick things about this web page as well. Again, there's directions on what to do here. So if you need a reminder, they're right here. If you want to get our coastal waters forecast from the weather office in Wakefield, you can just click on here, and it will give you the latest coastal waters forecast that everyone is very used to. And here is sort of a short description on low likelihood, medium likelihood, and then high likelihood of the different thresholds there. And then, last but not least, we have some other links that you may be interested in from the ports page, NOS ports page for the Southern Chesapeake Bay, the Buoy Center Marine Observations page, and then our Port of Virginia marine forecast page that we have here, our decision support page that you can get to as well. So just a few extra links there. So I think that's all I have for you at this time for this new webpage of ours. We will welcome any comments you have and suggestions to the page. Again, it still is experimental. It is still in development, but we're really hoping that you will find this very useful in making decisions on wind threats across the region.